Hello guys, welcome to another episode of JavaScript Weird on my channel. And in this video, we are going to discuss the interesting behavior of the null coalescing operator and the logical OR operator. So if you are aware, both of these operators are used to extract the true value. If there is a value, you extract that and you show it. So this is the usual use case that many people do with this operator. So in this example, maybe I'll start with very simple. If I put my variable as undefined and I am doing here the null coalescing check, and here I'm doing a logical operator check. So let's see what result it gives. So if I run this, I get the actual value that I wanted, and it ignored the variable's value. It was undefined, and which is a pretty common. This is something that many developers want to achieve. So it did that job. So delving down to the result, like why exactly it happened. So many of you may be aware, like it worked on the falsy values in JavaScript. There is something called falsy value and the truthy value. And in the JavaScript, the logical operator or the Boolean operator you have completely depends on the truthy or the falsy value. So it is important to understand like what are exactly your falsy values and the truthy value. So these are the things that come under the falsy value undefined, which we have here, which is the falsy value. That's why our example showed the result that we got here. Then the null is falsy value. 0 is a falsy value in JavaScript. Not a number is a falsy. False itself is a falsy. And empty string is also a false. Okay, so these are the set of falsy values. Then what does a truthy value mean? So everything else which is not part of this, literally everything else which is not a falsy, will come under the truthy value. Now let's modify our example a little bit and try to play around with more variations. So this time I got a fruit variable. In that I have undefined, null, and empty string, and one fruit which is apple. Then I have a color as an empty string, blue, and then null. And a third variable of mine is number, where I have a 0, not a number, 100, and a false. So I'll get actual values that I wanted. So in the case of fruit, I got the apple, which was the string, and in the color I got the blue, which was my actual color, and in case of the number I got a number 100, which was a number. Now there's no rocket science going on here. I said like it completely depends on the truth and the false values. All the values that we have here, undefined, null, empty string, or 0, not a number, or the false, all of them were a false value. That's why what this logical operator did, it checked for the truthy value. So that is the reason why we got these values, which is perfectly fine. Now let's check how the null coalescing operator does these things. So if I just modify this operator from the logical OR to the null coalescing operator, which is supposed to do the same job which it did a same with the R simple example that we had initially, where it was a simple string and we had undefined assign. So let's see how does this behave. Now if I clear my console and run it again, this time I got a totally different result. Okay boy, now we are talking a real thing. So with just a swapping the OR operator with the null coalescing operator, why did it messed up the result and it didn't print out the actual values that we had for each of the variables? So in case of the fruit, it actually took an empty value. That's why we have an empty line here. In case of the color, it took the empty value, empty string, and in case of the number, it took the 0. So let's try to check like what exactly the null coalescing operator does. So this is the documentation of the null coalescing operator, and it says that the operator is the logical operator that returns its right hand side operand when its left hand side operand is a null or undefined, and otherwise it returns its left hand side operand. To our example, same thing is happening. It checked for the left hand side, it had undefined, then it checked for the null, which is also not allowable, then it checked for the empty value. So it took that empty value and assigned to a fruit. But this is not a behavior that we want, and this is the problem which can lead to many mysterious bugs in your code. So after seeing this, a question may arise in every developer's mind that when to use a nullish coalescing operator and when to use a logical OR operator. So nullish coalescing operator check for the undefined or the null. So if your concern is just avoiding undefined or the null value, then go for the nullish coalescing operator. One example can be like initializing a score in the video game. For the logical OR operator, the rule is simple. If you want to avoid the all the falsy value, you doesn't care about like what value is going. There we go. And what I got here is the 1, because 1 is the valid truthy value which I got. In the second example, I didn't pass anything. That's where it took the default value what we got. And in a 0 case, you actually cannot have a page size of a 0. You cannot put a 0 elements in a page size. Another good example can be a function that returns the username or the picture of your user on your website. So you can have a get username, and if it has the name pass, then you can return that actual value, or if it is not there, anything falsy, you can return something default like this. So now if you started to think that the logical OR operator is the most safest and the most reliable one and you want to use it, so I want to add one more twist into it. So there are certain things that you can do with the nullish coalescing operator that you can't do with the logical OR operator. For example, if I have a data like something like this, and if it has a desired value that I want, so what I can do is I can extract the length out of it. So I can put a nullish coalescing operator followed by the dot and then access its property, which is length in this case. This will give us the length of the data that you have. So this is the benefit that you get with the nullish coalescing operator. If there is the desired value present, you can extract out the additional information about that value that you cannot do with a logical OR operator. Another use case can be you have an object, and in that object you have to check if there is certain property present or not. You can do that with a nullish coalescing operator. You can check like if there is certain property available or not, and if it is not there, it would simply make that as undefined, but if it is there, then you can access that. So this is the benefit that you get with the nullish coalescing operator that you don't have with the logical OR operator. So the nullish coalescing operator checks for if the value is not null or not undefined. It returns that, and it has the characteristics of that. It can give additional information about your variable. For example, the length. There is a JavaScript object. You can access the property at a runtime. So practice of using a nullish coalescing operator with the dot, it's called optional chaining, where you check for the property values conditionally. And if you're thinking to use this operator together, so mixing them can be risky. Logical operator and the null collision operators cannot be mixed without the parenthesis. So you have to use the parenthesis. This is what it is suggesting. So let's see what result we get this time on this example. So I got a not a number because it first checked for the logical operator. 0 is a falsy value. Then it took the not a number. This example is interesting because not a number is not a truthy value. Actually, not a number is also a falsy value. But what happened here is it checked for like what is the left hand side. It encountered that the left hand side is a falsy value. Then it took whatever it have on the right hand side. So it doesn't matter, right hand side can also be a falsy value or truthy value or something else. It can be anything. It doesn't check that. What it checks is just a left hand side. So it returned a not a number. Then we are applying a nullish coalescing operator. Not a number is not a null, neither a undefined. That's why it picked that, and we got a result not a number, and it never went to the 100. So mixing this operator is a fun. I'm not saying to avoid it. It can actually help you to write down a clean code in some cases, write some complex logic within a less lines of code. But you have to be careful and you have to understand the fundamentals of these two operators, the way it handles the falsy values. Thank you for watching this video, and if you have any doubts or question, do let me know in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to answer.